And I want to welcome you to our second virtual Drasha. It's great to see you all tonight. And, I'll share with you something. I was recently reading a post on social media. And by the way, of course, if anyone out there is suffering or is ill, I do also want to take this opportunity to wish a shalema to you or to any of your family members who may be suffering from illness. But anyways, I read a post on social media asking, what's the first thing that you're going to do when this is all over? So I was wondering if anyone wanted to share with us on the chat bar. Feel free to chat to share what the first thing is that you're going to do when we get released from this and coronavirus is all over. Let me see some answers over there on the chat bar. Someone's gonna return the library books. That's important. All right. Davin with a minion. Good. All right, some good answers. My personal thing that I wanted to go out and celebrate, I'm right there with you. I think the thing that hug my mother, sister, nephew, boy, that sounds wonderful. I want to go to an overcrowded, overstuffed Kesser Kiddush with cholent overflowing. I mean, I can already sort of smell the cholent. But seriously, I actually thought that this is a great question. What will we do when it's all over? Because we should be thinking about what we're going to do when it's over, because it's going to end. Because we as a society, as a people, we have what it takes to get past this and to recover. But I also thought that this question of what we're going to do really points us to a second question, which perhaps is even more critical. And that question is, where are we going to be when we come out of this? Where will we be as a community? Where will we be as a society? And we know that the coronavirus has led to extensive measures of social distancing. It's imperative that we adhere to these guidelines. But I was thinking to myself, perhaps there's a better way of framing social distancing, maybe better than social distancing. What we really need is physical distancing for a time and social closeness. And I was thinking to myself that a real major challenge that faces modern American society really is social isolation. I mean, think about some of the problems that are lurking in our society. Take gun violence. We know that perpetrators of violence have a high tendency towards social isolation. So isolation is a big concern today. It's of great concern to mental health experts. Let me see if I can pull this up over here. University of Michigan's Monitoring the Future project actually found that since 2007, which was really the dawn of the smartphone era, so teens have really decreased the amount of time that they spend with their peers. I mean, when I was growing up, we used to hang out at Friendly's, used to hang out at the local ice cream places. But in our world, that's decreasing, and social isolation is increasing. And so there's a real kind of sad irony here that we are faced with a situation where, to help save lives and save our health network, we need to undertake this movement of social distancing. And so I think something that we can ask ourselves is this social distancing going to reinforce a problem that's already lurking in our society? Will it make things worse? Or on the contrary, perhaps we'll have the opposite effect. Perhaps social distancing will help people realize how much we need one another. Let's put it another way. There's a lot of division in our country today. Is this crisis going to bring about a new unity that's going to kind of sew us back together? Or is it possible that we'll drift farther apart? And when you think about these questions, I think we really realize that depending on how we approach this period of time, we just might have a solution for a very, very vexing problem that we face. Now, this weekend, we won't be in Shul, unfortunately, but we're going to start to read a sefer that seems far removed from our world. But in our age, I think that Vayikra is more relevant than we might realize. Vayikra, in a sense, could be seen as the ethical backbone of the Jewish people. It contains Leviticus 19, which is one of the great ethical codes. It contains the mitzvah kadoshim to you, the idea that we're holy and that we should dedicate our lives to God. The idea of kedusha, sanctity, really is the foundation of the whole sefer, and that really starts with the sacrifices of our parsha. But the sacrifices seem so distant, so far away. How can they speak to our modern world? And I just want to take a moment. Listen to how the Torah describes the very first korban in Sefer Vayikra. The Torah says, and the Kohen shall cause it to go up in smoke, an elevation offering, reach nichoach, a satisfying aroma unto Hashem. A satisfying aroma. Think about that. The phrase is repeated many times in our Sefer. What could the meaning of this possibly be? Does the Torah mean to tell us that Hashem likes the smell of a good barbecue? And although it's the first time that we see the phrase in Vayikra, you may have noticed the phrase before. In fact, the first time the phrase occurs is actually in the Parsha of Noach. Now, after the flood, Noach emerged from the Teva, and he came out into a world that was desperate to be rebuilt. But before constructing his own home, Noach built a mizbeach, place of worship. And here is how the Torah puts it. I want to see if I can share my screen with you over here. Let's see if you can see this. All right, can you see the
Yes.
Yes, okay, wonderful. So we see here, Vayivan Noach mizbeach laHashem. Noach built an altar to Hashem, and he took from the pure animals, and he brought sacrifices. Vayarach Hashem es reach nichoach. And the Torah says that he smelled the savory scent, and Hashem said that he would not curse man again. So this is kind of an important thing over here, and that's the idea of reach. But what could this possibly mean? What does it mean to give God a scent? And the Malbim looks more deeply at this word reach, scent. He points to a connection between reach, scent, and ruach, spirit. And the two words are nearly the same. In fact, the difference between the word reach and ruach is really about half a vav. It's almost like a small dot in a Sefer Torah. And when you think about it, the two words, reach and ruach, are connected because the meaning of these words is similar. Think about it. Scent, the smell, it's kind of like an inner essence. It's like the spirit of something. Look at the different senses of a person. You have sight, sound, touch, smell. Smell is the least tangible. It's something that's delicate. You can't really see it, but it actually really is something that is powerful. Maybe think back to a smell in your own life. Maybe it's the scent of your grandparents' house or somewhere that you grew up. Encounter that smell. As soon as you do, what happens? A whole flood of memories arise, and you travel back in time. I know that back in 2014, I actually took a trip to Israel. And when I got there after 30 hours of travel and changing 10 time zones, I was just in a complete daze. I went to sleep, but the next morning I woke up in Yerushalayim, and I started looking for a minyan, and all of a sudden it hits me. I am filled with the scent of the Jerusalem streets. And immediately I just felt, it's in me. I'm filled with the spirit of another world. And so I think that smell is kind of like an essence of something that we don't really see. It's like a deeper spirit. And when we say that the sacrifice has a reach nichoach, there's an idea that there's a deeper spiritual essence that is being brought to Hashem, dedicated to God in the altar. Now, recall that in Noach's world before the flood, there was plenty of fracture and isolation in those days. But at the same time, while Noach was living on the table with all the animals, he had to kind of immerse himself in all the needs of the animals. And so he was doing chesed. And then he comes off the teva How's he going to rebuild the world? Well, the first thing that he does is he dedicates a place, a mizbeach of worshiping Hashem. He dedicates the place, and he gives the scent, the inner spirit to Hashem. And so I think that something we can see here is that in Vayikra, there's this idea that there's this raw physical world. There's an underlying scent that we dedicate to Hashem. There's an underlying ruach and holiness about the world. Vayikra starts with the holiness of the sacrifices, but it touches every aspect of our life. It's our farms and our friends, our businesses, our food, our married life. The Sefer of Vayikra says that the world is filled with Kedusha. And maybe it becomes the most clear in one particular mitzvah that we all know, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ani Hashem. You shall love your fellow as yourself, I am God. And the Ibn Ezra notes the flow of the verse, going from loving your fellow as yourself to I am Hashem. What the foundation is recognizing that God is holy. And from that, we see in ourselves that we have an elevated soul. And that leads us to see the sanctity of our fellow man and our whole world around us. And so today, look at our world. Look at what's happened here. We're in this incredible predicament. And we're in it together. But where are we going? Is social isolation cascading us to a time of greater isolation and separation between people? Or are we perhaps on the verge of a time that people will embrace one another in an even deeper way? The answer to both of these questions, of course, is yes. A crisis could bring out the worst tendencies in people. We could hunker down and get very absorbed with our own needs and become more self-centered. But on the other hand, this crisis could be just what our generation needs. It might help us overcome the problem of social isolation that we experience in our times. I mean, I think about my grandparents' generation, the greatest generation that came together in World War II. The greatest challenges are what made them the greatest generation. And I think that in a sense, we can already see a little bit of this spirit coming out in small ways. There's so much chesed going on here in our own Kehila, people in Kesser Israel setting up a chesed network, the Jewish Federation, people throughout Portland helping one another. I saw that Elon Musk converted his factory to produce ventilators. And then just think about, the issue of the medical masks. And you have from people right here in our neighborhood to a group of nuns in France, Tim Cook of Apple Corporation. You have people across the globe that are coming together to produce medical masks that caregivers need. We've also seen viral videos of people from Petach Tikva to Boston essentially hang out of their windows to sing together and to embrace one another, albeit in a different kind of way. And so I think something that we're seeing is at least the potential for our society to pivot away from isolation. We may be moving towards a time of deeper societal connection and harmony. And I mean, just think about what that could mean. Just imagine what it would be like if we returned to shul and we did so with a much deeper love and appreciation of one another despite our differences. And imagine not only in our shul, but in every shul. And imagine if our shuls were a model for our greater American society. It's not easy. And I think that to realize this vision, we have to find ways to bring the spirit forward in a really enduring way. And perhaps getting back to that first question, what should we do when it's all over? Maybe we need to think beyond just the first thing, but really the enduring thing. It's not an easy task, but it just might be that this is the best time for our society to unite and to overcome one of our deepest vexing problems of social isolation. And so as we prepare to do that, I want you to think back to the image of Noach rededicating and rebuilding his world. Take a look at that and let that scent fill your life. and from our own lives, hopefully that savory scent will go out, it will emanate out, and will just fill out the world. And so I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. By the way, I also wanted to tell you this is not the end of this series, because actually, was anyone wondering if the Messiah is about to come?
No.
Did anyone have that question? I'd like to tell me in the
This would be a
chat
good
box.
time.
Who here is okay? I see Hadassah, Tovia. Some people are wondering if the Messiah is going to come. I've got very good news for you, because next Thursday night you are going to find out is the Messiah. Do you see my screen? You see it? Yeah.
Yes.
Next Thursday night you will have the opportunity to learn, is the Messiah coming? I don't know the answer yet, but I'm going to figure it out by next Thursday. So, you know, it's been great to get together here, and I'll stay on for any questions.